Hello everyone, I'm Levario. Welcome to Volvox. In this video, we are going to talk with Levario about building tools for AI agents, MCP servers, and a lot more. We're going to see a lot of practical projects. And in the end, we are also going to share some tips on how you can start building your own projects. All the links are going to be in the description box, so make sure to check that too. If you're building something and want to share it with us, make sure to DM me on Discord or leave a comment here and I will make sure to follow up with you. Without further ado, let's get started. Hi, welcome. Can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. I'd like to say that I'm actually super happy to be here and thank you for inviting me. My name is Levario. I come from Arizona in the United States of America, and my main background comes from mining inside of copper mines. I was a heavy equipment operator. From haul trucks to dozers to excavators, I can run them all. So to find myself here in the programming world in AI has been kind of a leap of faith, and it's been a huge change for me.
Yes, and I think that you are already doing amazing. But before we get into that, would you also like to share a little bit about what is your inspiration or motivation for building and creating?
Whenever I first tried AI was kind of the inspiration that I had. I have an engineering background. I dropped out of college to go chase money at the mines, if that makes sense. But before that, I was kind of into coding, kind of into development. I've always wanted to make a game. You know, everybody wants to make a game. And that was kind of my inspiration is I want to get into this scene so I can create something and learn some new skills. And I don't know if any of you guys remember AI Dungeon, that mobile game that kind of blew up. Pretty much you would talk to this AI and it would tell a story together, except the story always went off the rails. It would never remember even who your character name was. It would never remember who the main protagonists were. It didn't even remember what's in your inventory. So everything that happened inside the game was just prose and there was no mechanics to it. And so I kind of played that and I was like, I see that there's a way that this could be a lot better. And I want to try to make something that fills this gap where AI is not just giving prose and telling stories and making crap up. It's actually using data to tell an informed story that holds continuity over an infinite amount of time. And was my original inspiration.
Amazing. I love this real kind and original kind of things when you're building from heart. It's always a nice thing to see. Okay, and speaking of that, would you like to share some projects with us? I know that you've been building a lot, so please demo us some of your projects.
For sure. I think we'll start out in RPG MCP. I built it as a model context protocol that Anthropic came up with, last year at the beginning or 2 years ago. And it pretty much was everything that I was imagining needed to happen inside the AI space. From talking to ChatGPT and it's like, oh, copy and paste this code to your IDE. That was kind of laborious. It took forever. Debugging was awful. And so when MCP came out, I was like, oh, this is the tools that we can use to handle structured data. And so I built RPG MCP, which I'm going to share my screen here. And we'll just check out a little bit what the GitHub looks like. Okay, perfect. Now, as you guys have heard, I'm a vibe coder. So getting into really deep technical details is not something that I'm going to be able to do. But as an overview, this MCP server is almost 200 CRUD operations over over different categories, if that makes sense. So there's CRUD operations for managing characters, for managing magic, for handling quests and what your NPCs think of you, for even generating a procedurally generated world. And all of this runs in a backend that is embedded inside of the Model Context Protocol server, which as an open source project means that you can come to this repo and you could tell your AI, hey, check out this program. I want you to install it for yourself. And then Cloud Desktop can say, okay, cool. The instructions are here. Let's register this MCP server. And then all of a sudden you have an RPG game that you can play with your Cloud Code subscription and you could edit whatever part of you want with it. You can play as however you like. I don't know how to hype it up that much, but really what I'm saying is this is a game where you could pretty much do anything as long as it's in the text of your chat.
And you said that you're a vibe coder. So what tools did you use to build this?
So kind of talked about earlier, ChatGPT was a horrendous experience. Whenever you go into ChatGPT, basically it's giving you ideas, but then you have to implement those ideas. And for a lot of people that are technically inept or not experts even, that's a pretty jarring process. So I was looking around for a long time and I discovered a tool. It's called RuCode.
Mm-hmm.
I know Bill knows a lot about RuCode. It's where we met for the first time.
And for the people that may not know, Bill is the founder of Volvox.
Yes, awesome guy. RuCode was basically the tool that I found when I was searching, how do I let the AI do stuff instead of just tell me to do stuff? And it was a tool that allows you to code directly into your computer. You could just give it a task. It uses a boomerang logic, so it uses an orchestrator to break your idea down into atomic units and then send out sub-agents to go do those atomic tasks and report back, validate that, and then move on to the next task. So if you I want to create an HTML, CSS, local web app that is a to-do app, just a simple tool that you want to use for yourself to keep track of something. You can give it these requests and it will automatically write the code onto your computer, tell you how to serve it, tell you how to host it if you wanted to, and walk you through everything that you need to do to write this code.
Nice. I didn't know that tool, so it's pretty helpful. I will try to link it in the description box for anyone else that wants to check it as well.
But one of the things that I noticed when using this tool is it still sometimes isn't enough. It's a great tool that is like a great starting point. But really, tools like these get their power from its customization. So instead of getting your agents generic prompts or system prompts, you tell them to do specific things. You say, I want you to act in this way. I want you to use these tools. I want you to follow this workflow. And if you don't write that in a place that is persistent, it will lose that context. And so part of my first experience running into troubles in this environment was it's not exactly doing what I want it to do, if that makes sense.
It does. And all of us have these issues with multiple projects, even with similar stuff.
Yeah. And I noticed that too in the community. Everyone was like, hey, it's not following directions. It's not doing it super well. And this was in the time where we were at cloud, where Sonnet 3.7 was the biggest agent on the market for coding. And everyone was like, it's still not there yet.
Yeah.
And so I built a template framework where inside of RuCode, you can give it custom instructions. And that framework was kind of the first time something I've created got popular. And it was inside that RuCode community where people were trying to figure out how do we get these agents to do what we want them to do and do it reliably. Because right now, even though the hallucination is what makes it write novel code, it's also what makes it do weird things.
Yeah.
And so that broke down into just building a structured workflow and giving it into system prompts and saying this in that workflow, inside those instructions of the workflow, it says the most important thing was scope control. So you take a big task and you tell the orchestrator agent to break this up into the smallest points to get from 0, your green field, to 1, a finished minimum viable product, right? And so whenever you build these units, you say, this is the scope that I want you to work in. Do not edit anything outside of this file. Do not do anything unrelated to what this task is.
That's clever.
And so when you break it down into what your scope is, then it's not a physical barrier, but it's a mental barrier for the models to say, I'm not supposed to be doing anything other than this very specific subtask.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Is there anything else special here that you would like to show us?
I would just like to mention that from that initial framework, I've built the tools inside of this framework to extend the capabilities. And it's also kind of driven my underlying philosophy. And the philosophy is that the LLM is not the intelligence. Your database is the intelligence. And the LLM's only job is to be the hands to operate around that. And so when you give your tools when you build or create tools for your agents, you want to make sure that they are not able to mess with your stuff directly. That every single action that they propose is a proposal. And even if you're not pressing approve on it, whatever tool that you have validates that that tool, the request the AI is making, makes sense. So yeah, do not let your LLMs directly modify state. Make sure that they're using an intermediate tool, MCP servers, to make sure that they're doing it correctly.
That's actually a really nice tip. I was going to ask you later about tips and advice, but you already sharing some nice knowledge with all of us. Amazing. Okay, let's keep going. Can you show us something else, like another one of your projects?
Sure. I think this is a great time to kind of talk about that everything that I have in my vast amount of projects that I maintain has been a learning experience.
Yeah, we would love to see that.
I think a lot of people, especially if you're just getting into this, that you should probably just dive in and just try to do something and do it for the sake of learning and not for the sake of making money. And that's where all of these projects that I've built have started from.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. First, build something because you like it, because you can use it, because you find value in it, or someone else from your community may like it and find values in it. And then do it for the money, but first do it because you enjoy it.
So that's exactly where I started from. And I think I'm finally getting to the point where I'm ready to create a project for myself that is designed to actually earn money instead of designed to be like an open source learning tool for other people to learn. But if we're going into the passion project, it was the RPG MCP. And to give an example of how that one kind of works, it's simplistic and it's plug and play everywhere and it's free. And you can say, I've already set up this. So when I got ready for this, I told my AI to use my tool to set up an encounter between two 7-level fighters. And it runs through an entire setup where if you're a dungeon master in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and you're setting up the campaign for your players to come and play, what are you going to do? You're going to go through all your tools, you're going to write your notes, you're going to create your characters, you're going to give them equipment, and then you're going to present it to your players once they arrive to play. And that's kind of how the AI works inside of RPG MCP.
Nice.
Yeah, there are batch tools. One of the issues with AI is they like to do things sequentially, so they don't always say batch, manage inventory, and do all of these tools in one call. They will just chain them one after the other, so sometimes it takes a while to get to a state where everything is set up. And so yeah, we want to use a combat action from my server. And it says actor ID and encounter, and then it gives a little bit of data. And if we accept that, when I talk about validating intent, and that's what your tool should be doing, this is what I'm talking about. Instead of the LLM saying, okay, you attack your opponent, okay, and then it just saying narratively, you did 10 damage, or whatever. Instead, we are sending all of this data into the intermediate server, and it's saying, hey, you can't actually attack because you're 20 feet away. And so you say, okay, now the LLM proposed an intent. The intent got rejected because it was invalid, and now it's given you a hint how to fix it.
That's really nice.
And so when we build our tools and we're trying to solve for the idea of memory or continuity or LLMs hallucinating things that don't be there, we need to remember that we use our tools to validate intent, and that the LLM's only purpose is to suggest solutions, and it is our job to validate them, whether that's through the deterministic machine or you pressing approve.
Yes, exactly.
And so this was like that first thing, my first learning experience, my pet project. I love this project so much. But that kind of built the foundations for, okay, now I understand how to actually get my agents to do things. Now it's time for me to learn how to work outside the scope of just a local machine, right? And so that kind of, on my journey, that's kind of guided me towards saying, oh, I need to learn how to do things that work on the cloud and have an authentication set up and have, where's it at here? The long haul game. So this was my very first attempt to say, I want to have a game that doesn't exist locally. I want it to exist only on the internet. And so that brought me to learn how to set up OAuth. I use Clerk for OAuth. I use Railway to manage my backend services. And it was my learning project for saying this is how we build games to serve on the internet. I'll just jump right into it. So this is a procedurally generated roguelike game where this was also my attempt to learn how to be front-end oriented as well. Instead of everything existing in a chat interface, we have a game with visuals and buttons you can click and things that you can read and scroll through.
Can you play a little bit the game to see how it's played?
Sure, definitely. This is a previous session because it is in Iron Man mode. It doesn't restart until you die. So I'm in room 16 right now, and I have the option to either take a rest or to advance. I'll take a rest because Roland is a little bit low on HP, and then there we go. That action is recorded here in the log, and then I can go to the next one. So room 17, it rolls a dice to see initiative. Enemies act first. So the enemy attacked me, 5 damage on Roland. And then I can attack the enemy. There's my turn. There's his turn. I won that room. To the next room, a little bit more challenging. Action surge. Now I can attack twice. We'll roll through that again. And it's pretty fast paced. It's just meant to be something to jump on and kill your time with and see how far you can make it.
Nice.
Every 10 rooms, we get to an intermission where you get a free full heal. You can recruit more people into your party. You can buy equipment. Let's see. I can definitely use that hunter's mail, and now I will put that onto Sir Roland. I can hover over it to see a little bit about it, and then I'm going to challenge the boss. So the bosses are also procedurally generated. They're supposed to be limited in power to how far you are along your path, but they can be pretty hard sometimes.
Nice.
And so everything, I'm using my skills, and then the skills have cooldowns until the next until the next time you rest. So if you use like an action surge, it won't be available until the next time you take a short rest or something like that. And then the core differentiator of this game that gives it a little bit of replayability over time is that we can pray at these shrines, and these shrines roll on a table and say, okay, now we're going to give your equipment a boon, and you can roll from like a minor to like a godly level enchantment on your equipment, and then you move on. I kind of wish I could die so that I could show it's an Iron Man game, so it's really hard to do any cheating. There's trap rooms. Okay, I just don't heal. I'm at half health now. And yeah, you can see it's kind of rolling dead. And I can also level up. So you can go through here and you can level up your chance to hit, how much damage you hit, and how hard it is for you to be hit.
It has a lot of stuff. It's pretty complicated. It has a lot of features.
It is a pretty complicated.
For how long have you been coding this?
So, like I said, I'm a vibe coder. There's my death.
Coding it.
It took about, I would say, 30 hours of labor to get this to the state that it's at right now. And then when you die, that's it. You just start from the beginning, you pray at your shrine, and you get a new blessing on your weapon. If you get a godly blessing, you might want to try to stay alive a little bit longer. Or that's kind of the differentiator is how lucky do you get when your equipment is blessed, and that kind of drives how far along that you can make it. And it's got a full high score, so my highest score is 18,000. I've made it to room 40. I've gained 166 gold when I died. Took 50 kills. It tracks how hard your weapon hits, how many times you've rolled crits in a run, the highest level you've achieved, and weapons. So the coolest thing I think about this game is that this was the weapon that got me to level 40. It was a steel longsword of might, and it had a godly blessing on it. So when I hover over the weapon I have now, I can see a history of what this weapon has done in its lifetime.
That's pretty cool.
And kind of how it works technically is that this combat log, whenever you play, it generates the combat log locally. And when it sends it to the high score, it redoes the entire run deterministically to see if anything's been altered. And if it says if your run matches my run, because we're using seeded RNG, they match, okay, you get to go on the high scores. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we saw your previous project, we saw the long haul, and now we are in your journey. So what did you build after that?
So after this kind of started to go, okay, so how do I turn RPG game into a front-end application as well? And this one is definitely a work in progress. But the same RPG MCP that you see here that I showcased right at the beginning is all back end, and the front end was a chat interface. So now we know that if we have a backend, we can serve it in the front end, right? The entire backend has a 3D spatial through VJS. So during combat, that's how the backend knows where you're at. It has X, Y, and Z coordinates, and it can call the database just to see what your coordinates are. But we can query the database as well and serve it in a 3JS animation. It's a little bit janky right now, and this is not working, but not only that, but we can use these animations to generate procedural worlds. So whenever I talk to, let's see if I can get it to do it. Create a maze encounter. I'm not even sure my key's in. Okay. So this is a maze here that it just generated. And guys, this is another tip. Whenever you design tools for your AI, make sure that their outputs are human readable, because you can send the JSON to the model directly, but you can serve an ASCII art or a rendered markdown for your humans to be able to see what the agents are doing.
That's another great tip and really useful.
So it built a maze. Let's see if it worked. No, that is a big sad. I have screenshots, but I don't know where they're at. But the whole point is that we have this maze, and all of these little black boxes are obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And the LLM is able to place these obstacles physically in the three-dimensional space. And we can render that, what the LLM placed, into the visualizer, and under normal circumstances, that maze would be rendered here.
Okay.
And so this is my attempt to contribute into the world of generative gaming, because if the AI can just physically generate in a three-dimensional world the game and then render it, if it does it in real time, then you have a video game that is gives you infinite possibilities, because you could just generate the next room, generate the next encounter, and all of the hard coding that a lot of traditional games are, you can't really do anything past what's coded and given to you. But with generative gaming, you could just generate the next thing. You could add your next mechanic. You can, yeah.
Wow, I didn't think of that, but yeah, it's pretty
And so
cool.
we can also serve all of that data. So when I ask the LLM, can you show me my character sheet? It'll query the backend and it'll give me a quick readable output. But since it exists in the backend, I could also just serve it in the front end. Here's my character sheet. The game also uses a Perlin world generation technique and serves it. So I could say, can you generate a desert-scape world map with no water? And error. And it figured it out. Okay, so it ran into an error and it corrected itself. It takes a while sometimes.
That's okay. So you said you're still building this, right?
Yes, so the backend is completely done, just about, except for edge cases and errors. But the front end to render everything that's happening in the back end is the final product. You download, and this is the game. Everything that is hard to read or access through text, we just serve it in the front end.
Hey.
Okay. Oh, and here's that desert wasteland. It just generated a Perlin generated world, and this is the desert. So not only can your LLMs work in a combat scene like this visualizer here, but we can build layers. Say, this is the combat layer, and this exists inside of a node, and this node exists in this town that exists on the coordinates in the world map. And so here's like a town. We could travel to this town, and we could get information 28, 22 coordinates. So when you start playing in the game, the AI knows that this is your coordinates, you're at this town, and it could start building out the town generatively. And then you don't have to know anything about other than what the town's name is. Then it could say, oh, it's a tavern. The tavern is a node. Inside the tavern, there's 3 rooms, and those are all nodes. And all of those nodes are connected to this coordinate on the overworld, and there's rooms that link each other logically.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job so far.
Thank you. So yeah, so from RPG MCP as a text-only experience to I'm going to serve a visual experience to now let's take the passion project and make that a visual experience as well. Some of the future goals, because the game handles combat in turns, is multiplayer. So you have a character, I have a character, and Bill has a character, and they're all marked as player characters, and so when we play together inside of a single session, it will stop at each of our turns and wait for our actions. And we could all contribute into the same world. So that was the idea of moving the MCP server from locally into the cloud where multiple people can interact with it.
And is there anything else that you are building at the moment except of that?
So I have 2 projects here that I'm hoping will culminate into what I believe is going to be my first paid product.
Nice. Let's see this.
So this here is Proof Calc. Proof Calc is a engineering calculations worksheet. If any of you guys have heard of SMath or MathCAD or MapleFlow, basically they're ways for engineers to show their work and present it in a, so they can get that stamp that professional engineers use to say this product is safe. Here's the work to show it, and this is the tool that I'm building to compete with what else is on the market. I guess we'll just dive right in.
Yes, I don't know any of these kind of tools, so yeah, I don't have a lot of knowledge on that.
Okay, so right now we'll start simplistically because it is still in development. We're gonna think about weight. How much does something weigh? So when we right click on the worksheet, we can click add equation. And we can double click that. We can go to the library and we can say, I want a formula for weight. So weight is mass times acceleration, which in this case is gravity, g. So I can add a given. I can say this is a unit of mass with this label, and we'll say, I don't know, 50 kilograms. I could also go in there and change to grams, milligrams, tons, but we'll stick with kilograms. And then we need g. So we'll add a given. This is acceleration, suggested g, and the acceleration of gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared. Now, because I selected type as acceleration, I don't have to build the units manually, but it will auto-suggest it. And if I just say save, there's my units. So we have the mass and the gravity of the formula weight. So I can right-click this and solve for W, and that is the weight.
Nice, cool.
Now, how this is different from some of the competitors is a lot of the competitors are linear. So if our equation or our solver is above the givens, it will stop working. It won't solve it because it's dependent on it being below it. In this setup, it's a node-based setup. So you can have these equations anywhere and they'll always work. And we do this by tracking dependencies. This is kind of a cool thing. When we're calculating our weight, we know that mass is involved, gravity involved, and these come together to make weight.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives us a validation. Okay, all of these are validated, and I'm checked that. Now I can go say, I can verify, verify, and verify. So this is a tool for engineers to use to work, basically. There's also labels. This is user created, user created, user created, and this is computed. When I click on a computed output, I cannot change what it is. It's immutable.
Uh-huh.
But I can come in here and change this to 100 kilograms, and eventually it will automatically update, but we can recompute it. Eventually it will cascade automatically, so I update mass and it'll automatically update W. For now, we have to do it recompute manually. And not only is it a quick way for engineers to build out with units and have unit dependency, we can also have a library here. So if you're an engineer, here are all the formulas that we have for engineering, and you could insert that formula directly into your worksheet.
Interesting.
So all of my tools are following the same philosophy. So if you're kind of guessing where this is leading, I'm sure you've seen the AI assistant here. Into the future when this is fully implemented, you could tell the AI, this is my problem, and it will build all of these nodes out. So instead of it doing the math inside of the black box that LLMs are, it builds out it shows its work. And so now you can verify as an engineer, this is right, this step is right, this step is right, this output is correct. I trust what the LLM said, instead of the LLM computing inside of the neural network and just spitting out an answer.
Yeah, that's pretty clever. So I think you mentioned you have a second project that you could potentially monetize. Would you also like to share that?
So this one is definitely not a monetization, but this is a building of the philosophy that we need to validate what LLMs are doing, and we need to figure out how to make their stochastic hallucination different every single time given the same inputs. We need to figure out how to wrangle that. Mm-hmm. And so all of my projects are an attempt to wrangle the beautiful creative nature that LLMs are with the reality that is sometimes they just make crap up like we do. And so I am actually building a intermediate representation coding language. It's called natural language source. This one's a little bit harder to get into.
Okay, we will do our best for it.
Yeah, so natural language source is I also have the GitHub. It's an open source project and it's designed to break English down into atomic units so that humans can understand the logic of code structure without having to know Python or Rust or TypeScript or whatever language you're coding in.
Mm-hmm.
So going to the repo here, the way that we do this is we break English up into what we call atomic natural language units. So these atomic units, and I kind of mentioned this when in that framework, we break down complex tasks into atomic units in order to control scope, right? So if we break English down into atomic units, we can use it to deterministically compile into a target language. I'm trying to pull up my examples here. So for example, this is math.natural language.
Mm-hmm.
The module math, a target is Python, and then if we look at this, it's pretty much it's in English, right? We can see what the unit is, we can see the purpose, it does this. The inputs A and B are numbers, and it returns A plus B. That's a pretty simple thing that most people that speak English or read English can understand, right? So if we take that math.nl that is auditable by any stakeholder. If you're a vibe coder like me, you don't really know how to read Python. You can read English, right? So we compile it into Python, and here it is, and then there's a lock. So that means that this will always deterministically compile into that. And so we open math.py, and now we have a Python script that does the same thing that this does in natural English.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we can do this for a lot of complex things. Let's see. So here's a lock-free queue, a Michael Scott lock-free queue algorithm. I can't remember. It's just a showcase. We compile that into NLS, maybe. Are we not working today? Oh, I think it's not compiling because there's errors here. We could actually handle these errors. So interestingly, this is a language that LLMs have no training data for, if that makes sense. So, but we can still copy and paste it to our vibe coder of choice and ask it to fix these because it is a programming language. And it does a pretty good job of handling .nl, even though it has no training data on it, because it is English.
Yeah.
So the idea is here, the philosophy is just like C and C# and stuff push assembly language into infrastructure, we're now trying to push Python, Rust, TypeScript into infrastructure and make natural language source the source code.
Mm-hmm.
So when you conversate with LLMs, that's pretty much you programming, right? Whenever we're vibe coding, the entire intent of what we're doing with our code lives in an ephemeral chat history. So our job with NLS is to take that chat history and encode it into something that anybody can audit and compile it into code. So NLS is the source code and Python is just an artifact of that code.
Yes.
So it's my attempt to wrangle the vibe coding, because people complain about vibe coding all the way. We can't audit our code. We don't know what our code does. Even if we do know what our code does, it works so freaking quickly that it would take days to review everything. And in this way, anybody that can understand natural language can look at .nl files and say, this is the logic. This is the business logic behind the code that is presented.
Absolutely. I see a lot of value in this.
And it's able to handle quite a lot of complexity, but of course it is in development. So there's a lot of issues that we have, edge cases that we haven't encountered yet, new languages, not only English, but Chinese or German or TypeScript or Rust. These are all languages that we could pretty much create a Rosetta Stone for and only code in natural language.
Yeah, I see. So maybe in the future we could do a part 2 of this video and we could continue talking about this project or any other projects that you may have.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love that.
So yeah, as we are coming to an end with this video, do you have any advice for people that are just starting out with vibe coding or they want to build their own projects?
My advice is just dive into it. A lot of people tell you that you need to learn how to code. Definitely you need to learn how to code, but the entire scene is changing faster than anybody can keep track of right now. So for you to learn how to code is more than just typing in actual code into your editor. It's also learning how to deploy. It's learning how to handle security, how to handle users, how to get away from your local host. So just dive into it, give your AI tools that you find and tools that allow your AI to reason over structured data instead of making direct edits. If you can dive in and give it the tools that your agents need as a vibe coder, then you could pretty much learn anything because AI is not only your assistant, but it's also an on-demand tutor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're mostly using Claude Code. Is there any particular reason for that, or would you suggest that or over something else?
I suggest if you're doing anything serious, don't use anything other than Cloud. T 5.2 is great. It's really smart. It's breaking math templates, but it's still not at the same coding level as Opus is. The same with Gemini 3. Gemini 3 is extremely creative. It's great at front end stuff, but it's still not as logically sound as Opus 4.5 is. I use those two, but only whenever my usage window for Cloud Codes runs out. Because Opus 4.5, even Sonnet 4.5, just gets it done right the first time. You don't have to fight with rewrites or refactoring or getting lost in scope, especially when you give it tools. You give it the task, it implements the feature, it creates an issue on GitHub, it makes a new branch, it reviews it, it pulls it, and all of a sudden you're live. And there's no fighting it. You just tell it what to do. This is the scope. It handles everything else automatically.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you for this answer. Do you have any other closing thoughts or anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
Other than just get into it, just learn. Go find a community, Volvox, or any community that is oriented around a learning experience, and then just dive into it. I can't say that enough. Just dive into it. Use whatever tools that you can to learn as much as you can while we're in this huge era of turmoil.
Thank you, Levario. Thank you for all the tips, advice, and of course, all the project that you shared with us. For anyone that is watching us right now, don't forget to check out the description box for all the links and everything that we discussed today, as well as make sure to follow us, Volvox, on social media and join our Discord server. There are a lot of folks there that are building and they are passionate about tech, about AI, and all this cool stuff. That was it. Thank you. Bye, everyone.